Kamaru Usman is out again this weekend in the 6th defense of his UFC welterweight title. With only one loss across his entire career, the Nigerian Nightmare is one of the pound-for-pound greatest fighters of his generation. But who did he lose to, and how did the defeat come about? Today we're discussing Usman's only loss, how it happened, and a quick look at the rest of his career. Stay with us. Let's jump straight in then and look at the fight itself. Usman took on Jose Caceres in just the second professional fight of his career at CFA 11 back in May 2013, and Caceres himself comes from solid stock, as he's the older brother of UFC featherweight fighter Alex Caceres, who has fought notable fighters such as Sang Woo Choi and Chase Hooper so far in his career in the top promotion. When Kamaru Usman took on Jose Caceres back in 2013, the older Caceres brother was 3-3 in his MMA career, with Usman 1-0 rookie. However, the fight didn't last long whatsoever, as Caceres, who had previously been taken down in the fight, recovered to get back to his feet and actually take Usman's back while standing. Kamaru didn't want to risk the slam, as he would almost certainly be giving us his back on the ground, which is not the position you want to be in. Caceres locked in the body triangle and managed to get the forearm under the chin of Usman, all whilst Kamaru was standing, with the current UFC featherweight champion tapping shortly afterwards. Of course, from the day forward, Usman is yet to taste defeat again and has turned himself from a regional fighter who was beaten by nothing more than a journeyman to one of the most dominant champions in UFC welterweight history. What did you guys make of Usman's only defeat? Give us your thoughts below. So what led to Usman losing to such a low-ranked guy? Stay tuned to find out. As you will know if you have followed Kamaru Usman's career, he grew up wrestling and he was damn good at it. Now a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, it wasn't always that way, and Usman is one of the only champions in history who almost never uses his Jiu-Jitsu. Known for his wrestling-heavy style, Usman also relies on his striking, which has certainly improved over the years, but back in the day when he was just starting out, he had nowhere near the level of experience in Jiu-Jitsu he has now. He still only has one submission win over the course of his entire career, which came in the Ultimate Fighter against Hayder Hassan. And during only a second pro fight, he simply wouldn't have known how to defend against someone with that level of jiu-jitsu as Caceres. However, he recognized it was a problem and went about putting it right, and that dedication has certainly paid off. What do you guys make of Usman's lack of BJJ in his fights? Let us know below. Let's take a look at the rest of his career. Now stick around. It's safe to say that since losing to Caceres, Kamaru Usman has been on a tear. He has won his last 19 straight fights, and directly after the rear naked choke loss, he knocked out his following 4 opponents. Of course, this sort of form doesn't go unnoticed, and he earned himself a place on The Ultimate Fighter American Top Team vs. Black Zillions. As we previously mentioned, he won the fight via arm triangle choke against Hayder Hassan, and the rest, as they say, is history. In his very first via in the organization proper, he took on Leon Edwards, who he will again come up against this weekend to defend his title. He scored a unanimous decision win against the Englishman, which incidentally was the exact same route to victory he would take in his next 3 fights, which included a notable win over Sean Strickland. He then demonstrated his knockout power by sleeping Sergio Moraes back in September 2017, before 3 more unanimous decision wins against some heavy hitters such as Demian Maia and Rafael Dos Anjos. At this point, he was banging on the door for a title shot, which he was duly given. He took the chance with both hands, dominating Tyrone Woodley over 5 rounds. It was at this point in his career he really started demonstrating his power with KO wins over Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and famously Jorge Masvidal. What is the best performance of Usman's career in your opinion? Next up, Usman has explained why he will never fight Izzy. Somewhat strangely, Usman has recently targeted a light heavyweight run, completely missing out middleweight in the process. Of course, his friend Israel Adesanya is the current middleweight incumbent, but if he wants to join the Champ Club, he might have to fight him eventually, as light heavyweight is surely unrealistic for a welterweight. However, the Nigerian Nightmare has explained that due to the fact that he grew up without any Nigerian representation in combat sports, he would not be interested in Nigeria's youth seeing one of the 2 current UFC champions from Nigerian heritage losing their belts. The pair have grown close since both became champions, so Usman is adamant that a fight between them is impossible. He said, "It's bigger than just sport because I didn't grow up seeing this. I never grew up and saw, oh wow, I could be an MMA fighter and be the world champion. I never grew up seeing that. But kids now get the privilege of seeing that." Kamaru went on to explain that Nigeria doesn't just have two champions, they have two champions of completely different flavors, meaning their fighting styles. Of course, Usman is more traditional, no-nonsense style fighter, whereas Adesanya is much more flashy, although recently he has been accused of being a little dull. However, if Usman really wants to be a two-division champion, he might not have a choice but to fight Adesanya, or wait until he is dethroned. What do you guys make of his words? Next up, Michael Bisping has had his say on who wins this weekend's title fight. Stick around. Englishman Bisping knows a thing or two about being a UFC champion, having shocked the world back in 2016 to take middleweight gold. And speaking this week about the upcoming welterweight title fight between Usman and Leon Edwards, Bisping has tipped his fellow countrymen to get the job done. Bisping remains the only British UFC champion, but believes Edwards has what it takes to become the second. The Count explained that it is difficult to fight for both men, claiming that he is truly torn before going on to say, "I'm friends with Kamaru Usman, I respect his body of work greatly, but if you think I'm going to sit here on my YouTube channel, being proud Brit, and pick against Leon Edwards, you're out of your gosh darn mind. I gotta do it. I gotta go with Team UK just to send the positivity into the atmosphere. And whilst this is a notable thing to do, you have to look at a current form and the pair's history. Of course, Usman has already beaten Edwards, dominating him in the first UFC fight proper, but Bisping has tipped Edwards to get the decision win, saying if Leon wins, it's because he's going to output him for 5 rounds. Before suggesting that Usman could easily knock out the challenger. Bisping then suggested that Usman can be hit, referencing Colby Covington, then saying that if he can do it, then so can Leon. What do you think? And finally, Leon has rubbish suggestions that Usman is the welterweight GOAT. Dana White has recently revealed that he thinks Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight of all time. And that's even with the Nigerian Nightmare still 3 title defenses behind the real GOAT, George St. Pierre. White recently suggested that if he gets the job done this weekend, then he has to be talked about in the same breath as people like John Jones or Anderson Silva. However, his challenger on Saturday night thinks otherwise, responding to White's claims that Usman is, quote, definitely the greatest welterweight of all time, unquote. Edwards said what most others are actually thinking and backed the French-Canadian. There is no doubting Usman's quality, and it is certainly possible that one day he emulates St. Pierre's achievements. But to suggest that right now Usman is the greatest of all time is a little absurd. Edwards said, I'd probably go with George. I grew up watching George, so I'd probably edge him because of that. He's never been an opponent of mine. As far as skill set goes, if it's skill for skill, I'd probably go with George. He admitted that he hadn't yet put much thought into Usman's resume, but did concede that he's good at what he does, before suggesting that when he beats him this weekend, he wants to be recognized in the pound-for-pound rankings. Do you guys agree with Leon? Give us your thoughts below. As usual, thanks for stopping by today, and remember to tune in again next time when we will be discussing all sorts of other fun bits and pieces. And why not do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video with any MMA heads you might know of. Bye guys!